សំដីត្រជាងហាក់ទឹកអមរឹងជួយប្រោះជីវិតបងជាតិនេះបងមិនដែលឃើញទេណានួនល្អស្នេហ៍បងនេះដល់ហើយស្រឡាញ់តែកលយានថ្ងៃណានឹងបានគៀកកាយឲ្យបងបានស្បែកពីក្តីទុកខាថាវរីជាទីស្នេហាអាណិតរៀមផងគុំដាច់មេត្តាណាអូនអើនៅពេលរៀមបានឃើញដួងចន្ទ្រារៀមខំសំឡឹងគុណសពអង្គាចន្ទ្រាជាត្រួយជីវិតអោសម្រងអើសម្រងជាប់ចិត្តសំដីត្រជាងហាក់ទឹកអមរឹងជួយប្រោះជីវិតបងជាតិនេះបងមិនដែលឃើញទេណានួនល្អស្នេហ៍បងនេះដល់ហើយស្រឡាញ់តែកលយានថ្ងៃណានឹងបានគៀកកាយឲ្យបងបានស្បែកពីក្តីទុកខាថាវរីជាទីស្នេហាគុំដាច់មេត្តាណាអូនអើអាវ៉ារីអាវ៉ារីនៅពេលរៀមបានឃើញដួងចន្ទ្រារៀមខំសំឡឹងគុណសពអង្គាចន្ទ្រាជាត្រួយជីវិតអោសម្រងអើសម្រងជាប់ចិត្តសំដីត្រជាងហាក់ទឹកអមរឹងជួយប្រោះជីវិតបងជាតិនេះបងមិនដែលឃើញទេណានួនល្អស្នេហ៍បងនេះដល់កាយឲ្យបងបានស្បែកពីក្តីទុកខាថាវរីជាទីស្នេហាអាណិតរៀមផងគុំដាច់មេត្តាណាអូនអើនៅពេលរៀមបានអូខេសួស្តីអ្នកនរគ្នាសូមស្វាគមន៍មកកាន់គម្ពីរ AMA ដែលយើងតែងតែមានរៀងរាល់សប្តាហ៍ហើយ2ដងក្នុងមួយសប្តាហ៍ហើយដែល like រៀងរាល់ថ្ងៃសៅរ៍នោះគឺយើងមាន AMA ទៅលើ specific topic ដែលយើងអញ្ជើញនាយក្មិនរបស់យើងវាក្មិនរបស់យើងមកធ្វើការបកស្រាយហើយក៏ឆ្លើយសំណួរដែលអ្នកនរគ្នានឹងសួរមកកាន់កម្មវិធីរបស់ពួកយើងហើយថ្ងៃនេះយើងមានភ្ញៀវពិសេស Regan ដែលជា Apprentice នៅក្នុង Cybersecurity របស់គម្ពីរហើយនឹងធ្វើការឆ្លើយនៅរាល់សំណួរអ្នកនរគ្នាសួរមកកាន់គាត់នៅថ្ងៃនេះ Okay, let's get started. Regan, let's introduce yourself.
ជំរាបសួរអរគុណខ្ញុំឈ្មោះ Regan ខ្ញុំ18ឆ្នាំ ខ្ញុំមក Cambodia 4ឆ្នាំ ហើយ and yeah.
Wow, so you are good in Khmer?
No.
What you just said, right?
Yeah, okay.
So how did you find Cambodia, by the way?
Actually, we came here because one of our family members lived here, and we just moved here to experience life with him, and then over time we fell in love with Cambodia, and now we're staying here.
So, did you go to school, by the way?
No, I've not been to school for the last 4 years, since year 7.
Last 4 years. So, since you are here in Cambodia, you don't go to school?
I went to school for 1 month when I first got here, but that's about it.
So, what's made you interesting about cybersecurity?
Well, I've always really been interested in tech. For the last 3 years, really getting into programming. And the whole reason that I got into programming was because I was developing plugins for games, very basic ones.
Okay.
And we would take little bits of code from different anti-cheats. So when someone's cheating in a game, we can catch them with an anti-cheat. And then over time I fell in love with this making a server secure, and although it was very basic, just getting snippets of code and putting them together to make the best one out of all of the good ones. This was my first bit of cybersecurity, but I really had no idea the full scope of cybersecurity, not until I got here.
Okay, let's give it a try. And can you share your interesting journey here in Cambodia? Like for the last 4 years, where have you been? Like around in Cambodia?
Well, I've been to a lot of provinces here. I would name them all, but I would completely mess up the names. But I have been living in Siem for half of the time that I was here, and I've been living in Phnom Penh for the other half of the time that I was here.
Okay.
So switching between Siem Reap and Phnom Penh, I have a lot of Cambodian friends in Phnom Penh, and they were kind enough to take me with them to experience Buddhism and the Dharma. And so we went and we followed around with the Dharma, and that was probably one of my favorite experiences here, is getting to experience Buddhism.
Did you become a monk?
I thought about becoming a monk, actually. I did. I really did. I was told
only think about it, right? Or you already...
No, I've not become a monk. I have thought about it though, really in depth. I was told to, but I never did.
Okay. So what is the greatest experience for the last 4 years about Cambodia?
That's a hard one, because there's a lot of really great experiences. But I would say so far my greatest experience was when we had just come to Cambodia, and we were here for about 1.5 weeks, and we rode on quad bikes through the countryside of Siem Reap. And it was amazing. I remember that because I really didn't like Cambodia when I came here.
Okay.
And that was the point that I really started to like Cambodia. And it was like, wow, this place is so different to my home, and it can be beautiful as well.
How about Cambodia?
Sorry?
You just get started to love Cambodia. How about Cambodian?
I love Cambodian people.
Okay, cool.
They're some of the nicest people that I've ever met, really. Cambodia is really one of the nicest countries, actually.
No, but, like, have you ever going to stay in another nation, like longer, just like Cambodia? Or?
No, not really. I've been to other countries. I've been to New Zealand, been through Singapore, but I've never stayed in another country as long as I've been in Cambodia. Only Australia.
Okay, let's get back to our topic today. That I expect to receive a lot of questions about the cybersecurity and about your life here in Cambodia. So why don't we start talk about your routine here in KOOMPI Apprentice? What is your responsible right now?
Well, as an apprentice at KOOMPI, what I have as my main responsibilities is number 1 is my study. I need to get a certain amount of study done every week. It is not predefined. It is up to us to work out how much we study every week. But there is a certain expectation that we do get an amount done of study. Number 2, I make content for KOOMPI Academy. and I do 3 to 4 videos a week. And number 3, as I stay here, I am expected to help with general maintenance of the house as well. So those are my 3 main responsibilities here.
So among of those responsibility, what is the first priority? Like, have you prioritized those first?
My first priority is study. So
Okay.
I always try and get my study done first thing in the morning, because that's when our brain is at its peak point.
Okay.
Fresh.
So once you mentioned about your study, because you are not going to school anymore right now, right? So what do you study? Like, how do you get a curriculum, or only you study what you love?
Well, this was the thing, and it took me a long time to figure it out. At first, I was studying, I think 2 years ago, I was studying math, English, and science, all of the basis of curriculum from Australia.
Okay.
And it really didn't work for me. I wasn't picking it up. I was not feeling motivated, nothing. But when I started learning about programming, so when I started learning about the game plugin, so we use Java for that, and web development, and that's when I started really focusing and finding a drive from motivation. And yeah, that's what I use. And then obviously, as you learn, you pick other things up as well. Like, I will get better with math when I'm programming, because you need to be good at math, and I will get better at English as well, because you also need to be good at English. So
Isn't English your first language?
yeah, right, exactly. But it's easy to lose it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for the last 4 years, are you learning, like, your English is still the same, or it's get lower? Like,
I think that in a way my English has gotten lower, but only when I'm really conversing with other people here, because I always tone it down. But in most ways, no, my English is pretty much the same. I have the same knowledge, if not more knowledge, about English as well, because I have done considerable amount of study, and I read books as well. So
okay. So how do you getting to know about KOOMPI? Like, when was that when you heard about KOOMPI for the first time?
The first time I heard about KOOMPI was, I think, last year. My friend was planning on buying the E13 laptop. And he said this was a Cambodian laptop and I want to buy it. And then he did not end up buying it, but it was my first knowledge of KOOMPI. And I saw the laptop on KOOMPI.com and I was like, wow, this looks amazing. And then after that, that was the first time, and then I didn't hear anything about KOOMPI for the last year.
Okay. Then later on, like, how
later on,
the connecting dot, how are you going to get into the Apprentice program?
One of my friends worked here at KOOMPI, and I met him in Siem Reap, and we actually just met just to do a workout session.
I see.
And then we had not seen each other for 2 years. And the last time we seen each other, we were in a gaming cafe, and it was nothing to do with cybersecurity or programming. But this time, as I was into cybersecurity for quite a while now, for the last 2 years before I met him at the park to work out, I asked him what does he do, and he said he works at KOOMPI, and he is apprentice for cybersecurity. And I was like, wow, how did you get to be an apprentice at in cybersecurity? And I was so impressed, and we started talking, and we had a lot of general knowledge, and it was great. And then I asked him, I said, is there any way that I can be an apprentice at KOOMPI as well? And he said, usually I would have to apply through the website or Facebook. So I did. I contacted Facebook and the website, but just by chance, Riti was in Siem Reap.
I see.
That next day, he was in Siem Reap. So then I went to meet with Riti, and my friend was there. Actually, it was the whole group that is in Siem Reap right now. Yep. And we sat down and we ate pizza and we started talking. And that's how I first got into KOOMPI as an apprentice. And for the first week and a half, I was just making videos. It was not really studying anything to do with cybersecurity.
I see.
And when I first started, I didn't really even know what Linux was. So,
So basically, you mean the first time you're using Linux is when you are getting to KOOMPI Apprentice.
Yeah, this was 3 weeks ago was when I started using Linux.
3 weeks?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago, because I've been with KOOMPI for 4 weeks. So 3 weeks ago was when I learned Linux.
Oh man, I thought it was like months. Or
No.
Okay. By the way, you mentioned that you are about to buy KOOMPI. Are you get a did you get a chance to buy KOOMPI?
Oh, it was not me going to buy the KOOMPI.
It was your friend.
Yeah, he never got the chance to buy it. He ended up buying an MSI laptop.
Okay.
Really nice one. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, okay, let's get started with the answer our user who are watching us on the Facebook Live. It's from Sophie. Why you enjoy staying in Cambodia? But first question is like, do you enjoy living in Cambodia?
Hi, Sophie. Yes. I enjoy living in Cambodia thoroughly. I am actually now at the point where I don't want to leave Cambodia. I love this place. This is like replaced my main home, Australia.
Okay.
This is my home now.
Why don't we do like you stay here and exchange? I'm going to Australia.
Deal.
Okay. She also continue her question that is it hard to study cybersecurity?
For me, it was. For me, going into it, it was hard because it is a really steep learning curve. Learning Linux at the rate that we learned it at first. We started with a course called NDG Essentials by Cisco, and going from very little. No, actually no knowledge of Linux. I had used Ubuntu once, but it was the graphical interface, so I never used command line. And going from not knowing any Linux to in a few weeks knowing how to use Linux and then use tools inside of it is it is quite hard, but it's definitely, it progressively gets easier. So once you start to know a little bit, you will start knowing more and more and more. It's a snowball effect.
I see.
Yeah.
So Happy was asking you like, how do you see cybersecurity as the job in Cambodia?
Hi, Happy. How do I see the cybersecurity as a job in Cambodia? I don't really look at cybersecurity just Cambodia, but to do with Cambodia. The whole reason that I am really looking forward to advancing my career in cybersecurity here is because there is so much that can be done to expand cybersecurity here. There's so much knowledge that can be spread. There's so much that we can look into to help cybersecurity here, and that is what I want to do. I want to help to improve cybersecurity here, and I want to eventually be able to help to improve cybersecurity everywhere. But for here specifically, that is what I really want to do.
That is wonderful. We don't have new questions. Yes, so let's get the question from me.
Okay.
How do you see the important role of cybersecurity guy in general, like both internet or in the workplace or in other organizations?
Well, see, cybersecurity is one of those things now that is more important than it was 20 years ago. Now it's really important that we're secure both online and locally, and we need people that know a lot about it. We need specialists, people who have studied cybersecurity for years and years, because without cybersecurity professionals in this world, our things like our bank details, things like our social media passwords, any passwords, anything on our local machines, it is all vulnerable. Everything is vulnerable. And without these people that have extensive knowledge of how to make and construct programs and security protocols, we would not have the amount of safety that we already have on the internet. And the ironic part about that is that we're still not completely safe on the internet. Even though we have all of this knowledge, it's still really, really vulnerable. So it's really important that we continue developing as a cybersecurity community, because it's the security, everything is done online now and offline, locally. So yeah, cybersecurity is really important in order to keep your virtual world safe.
Okay, so from Minh Liang Yun, why you choose cybersecurity?
I have always felt a really big attraction to cybersecurity. It goes way back to when I was playing Minecraft, creating anti-cheats for Minecraft. It is the feeling of number one. It was at that time stopping something bad, stopping someone from ruining the game for someone else. It was the feeling of being successful in stopping something that was bad. And then as I looked into the real world version of cybersecurity outside of the game, it is the same feeling for me. It's stopping something that is bad and building a safer internet, safer online virtual world. That's what I really, really like about it. It makes me feel accomplished.
Okay. From Livichia, what skills are needed for cybersecurity?
I think one of the most valuable skills in cybersecurity, from what I've learned so far, and I'm by no means an expert on this, but from what I can take from it, the most valuable skill is being adaptive. Always being able to adapt to different situations depending on what is presented in front of you. Not every situation is going to be the same ever, and knowing how to deal with that situation smoothly and precisely is really important. And there's a skills that I'm developing. That's my goal. I need to be smooth and decisive.
Okay. By the way, like I think they didn't. It's not part of your introduction that how long have you been in cybersecurity course or apprentice?
For the last three weeks, because I started off in Siem and I moved to Phnom Penh, and then for the last 3.5 weeks I've been in as an apprentice physically here and studying about cybersecurity.
Okay. So for Livichia, from my understanding, to learn the cybersecurity is to first, of course, before you're going to study about it, you must like it.
Yes.
And later, we suggest you to study more on the real world trend. Like at least from the very first time, you are able to read and understand what is the current situation outside of like or on the internet. Recently, I read about the Twitter hack, like how that 17 years old getting into hack the Twitter account of the mostly world leader. So whenever you interested in it, and then later on you will find a way like understand how they're going to get into that system, and then you will know that okay, maybe we have to learn this, learn that, and the skill can always imparted the skill.
Right.
The most important was the ethic and the principle, and it's good to have mentor so that they will able to transform the experience and what's not to do, because in the cybersecurity is a little bit dangerous. It's just like this is words come like power come with responsibility. You have to respond. You have to be like be with your principle. And he or she like continue that. And what cybersecurity measure? What are Can you just repeat your question again? I think I don't understand your question, or do you understand the question?
What are cybersecurity measures?
Okay, yeah.
So, as for now, as I've just been studying about it recently, and I'm very fresh, I'm not clear on all of the measures, but I do know, as you said, is first we are starting off with principles and also learning about different types of cybersecurity, because we have online and offline and whatnot. So I'm actually not so clear on that right now.
Yeah. And also in going to the cyber, it doesn't have to be in technical. Like recently, people get scammed on the online. It's also part of the cyber. It's part of the security. So still people ask you, how old are you?
I'm 18.
18.
18 ឆ្នាំ
18 ឆ្នាំ Wonderful. So by rights, if you go to school at this time, you already
for me, I would have been in my final year now.
Final years?
Yeah, most people would finish their final year at 17, but for me, I would be in my final year now. As that's I was kept back 1 year when I was in school, so I'd be in my final year now, completing school.
Okay, let's get back to another question. Is it okay for your family to what is their reaction on your how to call this one, your decision, because you don't go to school,
right? So it was a complicated situation for why I didn't go to school, but overall we adapted to it, adapted to not going to school, and found other ways to study, and it was very trial and error. So there were ways of different ideas that were had within the family, things that did work for me, things that didn't work for me, and a lot didn't work for me. A lot when it came to learning self learning, it didn't work for me, a lot of it, because I struggled with being motivated to learn about science, English, and math all day long by myself. So that was my biggest thing. But overall, when I found out what I really wanted to study, which was cybersecurity and programming, then that was what my dad really supported me with. He was always supporting me.
Wonderful.
The whole time, and he understands that this is my passion and this is what I need to do. And so he's always sending me different courses that I can take, different ideas. So yeah, it was taken really well by my dad.
Okay, Happy also ask you again, how do you find a resource for your study? Is it most paid or free course something?
Yeah, it takes a lot of research. I usually use free courses, because that is it was best for me to use free courses. I think I've taken one paid course at this point, and I can say that there was not much difference between the free course and the paid course. So I use free courses, and it's really easy to find course content as long as we're searching with keywords. So I would always search with cybersecurity courses for free, or cybersecurity courses, or likewise programming, specific languages like Python courses. And yeah, there's so much content on the internet for learning, YouTube, and there's so many courses on websites that you would be here for the rest of your life if you tried to read everything.
Okay, from which years again? This is not a question. He said, thank for the information. I used KOOMPI, but I don't know what cybersecurity was. Now I got it.
You're welcome.
From Regan, Regan, do you think cybersecurity will progress alongside digital advancement, or do you think it's a handle we can overcome one day?
This is an interesting question. As well, it's hard to answer with lack of knowledge. I'm very new to this, but what I can say is that in the last 10 years has been the biggest advancement in cybersecurity. And this should teach us something, that the fact that we were able to come up really fast from the research that I have done about cybersecurity, that I do know this, that the level of cybersecurity compared to what it was is substantially higher now. It went from this to this. So, it is really growing fast, and I definitely think it is a hurdle that is 100% possible to overcome.
Wonderful. So from the T, there are 3 questions. So I will do it one by one. What do you wish young people learned at this time in history?
I wish people learn how to learn by themselves. There is a really big misconception that you need to go to school and learn a curriculum, a syllabus that is pre-planned. Everything is so constructed, and to take a step out of that world into a world where you have to make it up as you go, you have to figure out what you really like. There's a big difference between people who self-learn or self-taught what they want to learn and people who go to school, and that is that generally people who have self-taught know exactly where they want to go and they have clear goals. People coming out of school are a little more unclear and a little more unsteady within what they want to do, and it presents a lot of trouble in their life. So being able to study by yourself, even if you mix it with school, then that is going to open up your life so much more, and I hope that other kids can try it.
Okay. No, I laughing like whenever I have a communication with you, I was thinking about one of my friend that you speak too fast. Like, this is the normal speed for you?
This is normal speed for me, yeah.
Okay, so if anyone find a difficulty to understand, he really can slow down for you. Can. Now let's continue to the second question. Okay. What you wish to learn last year?
Last year?
Yep.
Last year was my year for learning programming. That is what I wanted to learn last year. In the last year, if I had have thought about it now, what I wanted to learn last year, what I wish I had have learned last year, as you say, I wish I had have started with cybersecurity the way I'm starting now. I wish I had have started with that a year ago. I wish I had started with
that is what you wish for now.
Yeah.
Well, think about like last year before. Come to in this environment.
What was I learning?
Yeah. What was you wish to learn?
So I was wanting. Actually, last year was the year I was thinking about trying to start university and complete my final year at real school, because I was very, very lost. I'd been self-learning for a year, and then it was brought up within the family that I should go back to school, and I agreed with it because it sounded like a really, really logical thing to do. And so I was thinking about going back to real school and completing my final year. And then I was also considering university, but what I ended up doing was taking a bunch of programming courses last year and learning a few different programming languages.
Okay, so first 2 questions, like we're talking about the currents and the past.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the future. Like, what will you going to work or achieve in the next 100 days?
In the next 100 days?
Yeah, what
I have a few things that I want to achieve within the next 100 days.
Yep.
Right now, within what I'm learning here at KOOMPI is about networking and cybersecurity, not just cybersecurity. So I have a project where I want to create a Pi cluster, which is 3, 4, 5, 6 Raspberry Pis, all in we can call it one assembly. It doesn't have to be an assembly, but we generally view it as an assembly. Yes. And we connect them all wirelessly, and they can behave as one computer or one machine, virtual machine, or multiple virtual machines.
Okay.
We can use them for things like they're not so good for it, but you can use them for things like render farming. So when you're using Blender and you're rendering, you can use the Pis for that, and then keep using your computer for whatever you're doing. Something like this. Or we can use them, as I said, for virtual machines, for people to connect to, or as a server for websites. It's just there's an unlimited possibility for the Raspberry Pi cluster. So that's what I really need to one of the things that I need to accomplish within the next 100 days. And my priority to complete within the next 100 days is to substantially advance within cybersecurity what I'm learning. There's a course that I'm currently doing, and I'm just over halfway through it. And by the time I'm finished, that is when I would be able to start using what I'm learning in a more practical manner and learning about real practices rather than just a theory. And yeah, that's another important thing, is that when we're learning about the theory, it's really good to combine it with practice. So within the next 100 days, those are the two big tasks for me. Those were my goals to complete.
Okay, there's one more question, like how have you ever burned out and think about giving up? How do you overcome that?
Burning out, that has happened to me 2 times. Both times I was just doing way too much, and it's like you get so motivated and you feel like really, really good within yourself, and you start taking on a lot, and then over time you start taking more and more and more, and then it just becomes too much, and one day you will say, okay, maybe I'm not going to do this for this day, and then it starts going down and down, and then eventually you're not doing anything, and you're just sitting scrolling through Facebook all day, doing nothing, watching YouTube, and that is a burnout. That is when you've just reached a point where you have overloaded yourself and it's too much. And now the way that I deal with that is by learning from it, and now I don't take on too much. Now I know what my limit is, and in order to continue at a steady pace, I know when to back off a little bit, and I know when I'm doing too much and it's time to take a break. So doing things like going out, walking, riding a bicycle, and like fishing, things like this, these are all things that are great for separating yourself. It's important to find things to separate from the workload, because if you're just always inside of a workload, your mind is like an engine. If an engine is always running at full speed, it's bound to blow up, and that's the same thing with your brain. Something is bound to break, and you'll burn out. And it's important that you figure out what works for you, in the sense of how to feel when you're going to that limit, and how to escape a little bit and come back to it.
Wonderful.
Also, I'd like to add getting the correct rest as well. This is a big thing that I've learned. I had tendencies to study to early hours in the morning, 3, 4, 5. This is the worst thing to do. At the time, it feels amazing. It feels like, oh, I'm so productive. But then after a while, it contributes to a massive burnout. So,
yeah. But there's live experiments, like
exactly.
Your brain will work out at its best when your stomach is empty.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So he also from the T, what do you think about personalized learning model, which you are trying at KOOMPI at the moment? Like personalized learning model.
Ah, right. Okay. So I think that right now for me, I'm finding this perfect happy medium where I am completing an amount where I feel satisfied, but I'm also at a point where I'm not overdoing it as well. And there's a really fine line between that, and you have to get to the point where you are overdoing it to know where you can back off, and then you'll settle out and get that steady incline. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm at that steady incline, and I'm really happy with how I'm going, and I'm satisfied. And self-satisfaction is a really important thing. You have to be satisfied with what you're doing, and you have to be seeing progress to keep motivated. And it's really important. And also people around me as well are super motivating, and it's a really big thing to have supportive and like-minded people around. It helps just that much more.
Yeah. So the environments also matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he also can do another question, like what products, apps, tool, and device you think you will build and experiment with in the next 6 or 12 months from now?
So as I already said, for devices,
the
Raspberry
cluster,
Pis.
Yeah.
Now we can go further with Raspberry Pis. They're unlimited, but as far as what I want to experiment with, I want to start building my own tool library, or we could call them in Bash we call them aliases, right? In Linux we call it an alias library. I want to start building my own alias library, and it's a big project, and I want it to be used with all of the tools that I use. So that's one of my big goals, and to do that I need to keep studying a few things first, and I'm almost there, but it's a learning process as well, because to build an alias library you need to know shell script, and you need to be fluent with it, and so you don't need to be fluent with it, but I want to be to build it. So that's one of my bigger goals for the next 6 months, is to get that done and working properly. And then another one is for working with the Raspberry Pi, not specifically the cluster. I really want to experiment with different uses for it. So I've seen some cool uses where we can plug a wireless adapter into the side of it.
Yes,
they already have their own, but we plug one into the side of it and we can use it for hacking. And this is another important thing, is to learn how to hack is important, to learn how to prevent people from hacking, to learn how to recognize what it looks like. So that is these are two of my big projects, is that I really want to learn all about hacking, both physically and virtually. So those are two really big projects.
Cool. So from Chanton, how do we learn cybersecurity from you?
I would suggest starting from the command line, or we started at the kernel is where we started. That's where you start with the NTG course. You learn about the kernel and then you build up to the command line, and then it's layered. And I think that if you're going to learn about cybersecurity, you need to know Linux. I found that out the hard way. And then as you're going, find resources. Resources are your best friend. Tools like YouTube channels. There's a few YouTube channels, like Nullbyte is one that I use daily at the moment, and I also use Stack Overflow a lot as well, because troubleshooting with Stack Overflow makes everything easier. So find your tools and make sure that it's structured properly. If you can ask someone and consult with someone about the structure, then it's always going to be a lot easier. I'm really lucky because I have people that I can ask about anything here.
Wonderful. Do you recommend KOOMPI as the tool for your fellow cybersecurity student?
Yes, 100%. So before I started using the KOOMPI laptop, and actually just KOOMPI OS, I started using KOOMPI OS before I started using the laptop.
Yes.
And I can say that on my laptop, using just KOOMPI OS made it run a lot faster because it's Linux based, and I was running Windows 10 before that. Then also after that, I switched to using the E13 laptop, sorry, and it was amazing. It seems like such a small laptop when I first started using it, and then I looked at the specs and I saw the specs and I was like, 8 gigs of RAM in a laptop this small? Wow, okay. And it's so smooth for everything that I need to do. As far as learning, as far as even the heavier things that I do with it, like rendering videos. It's all really, really good. It's a perfect machine for what I'm doing personally, because I can do so much with it. I can edit my videos. I can also run all of the code that I've been working on. Can also use all of the tools we use for example, penetration testing, all of the ones that I'm learning how to use. It runs everything pretty flawlessly. Like there's no major issues that I actually haven't had any issues with mine. So
great. The fact is that it's like only 80% of the developer will not able to use all the resources from the computer. Like if you have the 8 GB of RAM from the laptop, you won't be able to use all of those resources, right?
Right.
So from Paul, about cybersecurity, can I learn it by myself? And can you recommend some tips to study about this major?
Hi Pong. Yes, you can 100% learn it by yourself. We're lucky here because we have people that we can talk to about it, but most of it, I would say 90% of what we are learning is by ourselves. It's the whole point of learning it here is that we are mostly expected to learn by ourselves. We've been recommended course material as well, and I can definitely, for a start, recommend the NDG Linux Essentials course from Cisco, because that's what I took, and I can tell you that maybe you have a little bit of knowledge already about Linux, but this will put it in depth. It goes through everything in detail. So that's number one. And also number two, I would definitely recommend the YouTube channels like Nullbyte, HSploit. These ones are really good for learning about different penetration tactics. And the really good thing about it is they don't just show you exactly how to code it and how to write it and then no explanation. They go into detail about everything. They tell you exactly what's happening behind the scenes of what you're writing in, and that's really important. You need that breakdown of what's happening. So that definitely Nullbyte, HSploit, and NDG course if you've not taken it yet.
Okay, so for your information, the NDG course was provided by Cisco Narakat. This is free, but the very important thing about it is the basics about Linux. So you even though you know a little bit about English, you will still able to study about it. The wording and the way they explain is very good. They can be able to build your very good fundamental about the Linux.
Anyone can learn with NDG. With the NetAcad course, it's amazing.
Yeah. From Pirun, Bex Pirun, what's working in cybersecurity really like?
Hi Pirun. It is, at the moment I'm learning, but what I can say is you can start to see the amount of not only freedom, but also the amount of in a way you start feeling insecure, because you can start, just once you open the book of cybersecurity, you can start to see all of these things, and it makes you want to make really long passwords on all of your accounts, and it makes you really realize how vulnerable everything is, and how hard it is to fully protect something. And it is almost impossible, from what I understand, to fully protect something.
I see.
Like there will always be people that can find a way around it. So, when you first get into it, there's a big, it opens your mind a lot, and you start to, it's a bit of shock.
So from Seth Samnang, which part is good at cybersecurity? I mean, present or audit or something like penetrate or audit or something else?
Well, for me, I focus right now on learning penetration and also how to create different types of software that will go to people's system and for example, be undetected and take a keylogger and report that all of the data back to you. Learning about how it works is really hard because it's a lot. It can be a lot more complicated than you think, as well. So I personally am really into penetration testing right now, and I think that's a really good place to start, because you can start using. Obviously, you have to have permission for what you're doing. It's really important to have full permission for where you're testing, but once you have permission and you start doing it, then you can really start learning about it. By physically doing it, you're learning about it. By seeing the return on your screen, you're learning. So I believe right now that penetration is, for me, what I really, really like practicing.
Okay. From Pirons again, he was like asking like any advice you giving to young people who's interested in pursuing cybersecurity career.
Yes, start now. Don't leave it till later. Start now. Start researching. The sooner that you can start researching, the sooner you can start understanding, the sooner you can start using it to experiment. And then once you get to the point where you can experiment with what you're learning, then that's the point that your learning skyrockets and creates what we call the snowball effect. Because when a snowball rolls, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger once it starts rolling.
Yep.
So now, when you can start practicing, you're creating that snowball. And that's what I think is really important.
I see. So the teachers want to back that, like is what you have mentioned about KOOMPI a while ago. Is it like what you just mentioned is true about it? Like
what parts? I mentioned a lot about.
Like I think about your learning and your project.
Completely true. Without the KOOMPI laptop, I would have been stuck with number one, my laptop, and it's got lower specs, lower everything. So yeah, everything is true about what I said about the KOOMPI laptop. Everything is true about it. It is fast and it can run a variety of things.
Let's just make it easy. Like, is it capable enough for cybersecurity student?
Yes, 100%. I'm using it right now, and I'm a cybersecurity student. So yeah, it is 100%.
Okay. Also, you also use it for the recording the tutorial. You also use it for video editing.
Everything. I use it for all of the tasks that I do for KOOMPI. For connecting to the Pi, for things like penetration testing, video recording, video editing, all of it I do with the KOOMPI laptop. It's like my little office room. It's where I keep everything.
There are one question, but before going to answer this question, I like to give like a very special announcement to our user today, that we have an announcement later, a special announcement to everyone after this question. So stay still with us. Later you will hear something more than just a question and answer about today.
I'm excited.
So from Happy, how can we reach out to you? Do you and your team at KOOMPI open an apprenticeship? Like, is the apprenticeship still accepted new student?
So at this point, I believe that we do accept new apprentices, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I would have to check. But how do you reach out? Through Facebook, through Telegram, through Instagram, everything like that.
Yeah, that was what we always mentioned about our community. Is over 2,000 people out there in the community. We always answer your problem with the open source, especially about KOOMPI, and also you can ask anything related to KOOMPI apprenticeship and about our company here. So if you want to join or if you want to know more about KOOMPI, please go to the KOOMPI community on the Telegram group with t.me/KOOMPI.
t.me/KOOMPI.
Yeah, we'll see everyone's there.
Okay.
So now it's time to meet Sophie. I like to call on Sophie to do the special announcement today. Then later on we meet, or maybe like we keep the final word to our audience today. Okay. We'll give a short break and then meet you guys again. Okay, wow, transform. Since đây Sophie I check come back happy you ដោយសារបងទទួលបានដំណឹងថាយើងនឹងមានការជម្រាបជូននៅដំណឹងថ្មីសម្រាប់ថ្ងៃនេះអញ្ចឹងបងសូមបកគលនាទីនេះឲ្យ Sophie.
អូខេហ្នឹងហើយអញ្ចឹងសួស្តីទាំងអស់គ្នាខ្ញុំ Sophie ថ្ងៃនេះKOOMPIមានដំណឹងពិសេសមកចែករំលែកអ្នកគ្នាដឹងអញ្ចឹងតាមពិតអ្នកដែល follow up ជាមួយនឹងយើងហើយតាមដានហើយបើច្បាស់មែនតើហ្មងគឺតាំងពីយប់មិញមកគឺមានអ្វីប្លែកកើតឡើងគ្រប់ social media របស់KOOMPIទាំងអស់មិនថា Telegram Instagram ឬក៏ Facebook page របស់ពួកយើងគឺផ្លាស់ប្ដូររូបរាងមួយថ្មីទៅជាពណ៌ខៀវហ្នឹងហើយអញ្ចឹងបានន័យថាយើង ស្បាយចិត្តមែនតើក្នុងការប្រាប់អ្នកនរគ្នាថាពួកយើងនឹងធ្វើការបើកនៅការ pre-order ឬក៏ការកក់ទិញនៅគម្ពីរ model ថ្មី model របស់យើងគឺ E11 ចាប់ពីថ្ងៃនេះតទៅម៉ោងនេះនិយាយទៅតាមប្រយោគវិញមកគឺថានិយាយថាពីថ្ងៃនេះទៅពីថ្ងៃ1ខែ8នេះទៅគឺយើងនឹងមានការកក់ទិញpre-order ចាប់ពីឥឡូវទៅចឹងមកថាអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាអាចធ្វើការកក់បានហើយសម្រាប់តម្លៃ pre-order របស់ V11 គឺ$148.99 ហើយខ្ញុំក៏ចង់ប្រាប់អ្នកគ្នាតិចដែរថាតើអ្នកគ្នាអាចកក់ទិញតាមរយៈវិធីសាស្ត្រណាខ្លះអូខេចឹងយើងនឹង go through ជាមួយគ្នានៅក្នុង website របស់យើងហើយ website របស់យើងក៏ថ្មីដែររូបរាងថ្មីទាំងអស់ហ្មងគឺមាន update តាំងពីព័ត៌មានរបស់ E11 ហើយនឹងE13 ចឹងទៅមួយទៀតគឺ website របស់យើងមានជាភាសាខ្មែរចឹងក្រុមការងារជួយ switch demo ឲ្យគ្នាយើងតិចណាអូខេអញ្ចឹងបើអ្នកនរគ្នាឃើញនៅក្នុង demo ហ្នឹងគឺយើងបាន go through ទៅក្នុង website ថ្មីរបស់ពួកយើងគឺឥឡូវហ្នឹងវាមានជាភាសាខ្មែរហើយនៅក្នុងហ្នឹងគឺអ្នកគ្នាអាច check មើលព័ត៌មានទូទៅរបស់ computer របស់ពួកយើងនៅថ្ងៃតាំងពី E11 ហើយនឹង E13 ហើយនឹងកម្មវិធីផ្សេងៗទៀតដូចជាព័ត៌មានហើយនឹងជាពិសេសសម្រាប់អ្នកដែល miss អត់ដែលបានឃើញ AMA របស់ពួកយើងក៏អាចចូលមើលក្នុង AMA របស់នៅក្នុង website page របស់ពួកយើងក៏មាន AMA section ដែរអញ្ចឹងអ្នកនេះអាចស្វែងរក AMA របស់ពួកយើងទាំងអស់គ្រប់ episode នៅលើwebsite របស់ពួកយើងផ្ទាល់ហើយអ្នកនរគ្នាក៏អាចធ្វើការកក់ទិញអញ្ចឹងកក់ទិញយើងមានវិធីសាស្ត្រ3យើងអាចទិញផ្ទាល់បានជា cash តែទិញផ្ទាល់ជាមួយនឹងពួកយើងអាចថាតម្លាក់ឈ្មោះអ្នកនរគ្នាឬក៏ធ្វើការតាក់ទងផ្ទាល់មកកាន់ក្រុមការងារពួកយើងនៅក្នុងគ្រប់ social media របស់ពួកយើងជាពិសេស Facebook page ហើយនិង Telegram របស់ពួកយើងតែអ្នកនរគ្នាក៏អាចធ្វើការទិញផ្ទាល់តាមរយៈ website របស់ពួកយើងគឺអ្នកនេះអាចធ្វើជាលក្ខណៈ ABA Pay ឬក៏ទិញតាម credit card របស់អ្នកគ្នានឹងថ្ងៃអញ្ចឹងហើយពួកយើង accept ទាំងអស់តាំងពី ABA ឬក៏ bank អីផ្សេងៗគឺអ្នកនេះអាចធ្វើការ transaction ផ្ទាល់តាមរយៈ website របស់យើងតែម្ដងដែលចាំមិនភ័យខ្លាចថាកក់ទិញទៅអត់ដឹងលុយទៅដល់ណាឬក៏អីយើងចង់បញ្ជាក់ប្រាប់អ្នកថាអ្នកនេះអាច secure 100% ក្នុងការទិញកក់ទិញ pre-order computer របស់ពួកយើងតាមរយៈ website របស់ពួកយើងផ្ទាល់ហើយនឹងតាក់ទងមកកាន់ក្រុមការងាររបស់ពួកយើងអូខេអញ្ចឹងយើងបន្ទាប់ពីចាប់ live company ទៅយើងនឹងមានធ្វើការ announcement ជាលក្ខណៈ poster អ្នកនរគ្នាក៏អាចសួរសំណួររបស់បន្ថែមមកកាន់ពួកយើងបើសិនជាអ្នកគ្នាមានចម្ងល់បន្ថែមអូខេអរគុណបងនឹងអរគុណ
សូហ្វីសូមកុំតន់ចេញទៅបានណាសួរពីសំណួរបងចង់ wrap up ឡើងវិញជាមួយនឹងអ្វីដែលសូហ្វីបានជម្រាបជូនទៅដល់អ្នកទស្សនារបស់យើងថ្ងៃនេះគឺថាយើងចាប់ពីពេលនេះតទៅគឺយើងទទួលការកំងឬកក់ទិញទុកមុននៅក្នុងគម្ពីរ website របស់យើងចូលទៅកាន់ KOOMPI.com អ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នានឹងឃើញនៅទំព័រមុខគេតែម្ដងនោះគឺគម្ពីរ E11 ហើយសម្រាប់ specification មិនថាពីគ្រឿងខាងក្នុងទំហំប៉ុណ្ណានៅលើ RAM hard disk ហើយនិង CPU គឺយើងបានដាក់ចូលក្នុងនោះហើយតម្លៃត្រឹមតែ148.99តែប៉ុណ្ណោះគេឲ្យ150បានអត់
យោ
អូខេមិនត្រឹមតែប៉ុណ្ណោះអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាគឺមាន option ដល់ទៅ3ក្នុងការ pre-order ហើយមិនត្រឹមតែប៉ុណ្ណោះអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាអាច pay តាមរយៈ Visa card Mastercard Union Pay ហើយបើសិនជាអ្នកនរគ្នាជាអតិថិជនរបស់ធនាគារ ABA អ្នកនរគ្នាគ្រាន់តែ scan គឺ pay ជាការស្រេចតែម្ដងហើយក្រុមការងារគម្ពីរពេលដែលទទួលបាន transaction ពីអ្នកនរគ្នានឹងធ្វើការ follow up ដើម្បី secure ការ order របស់អ្នកនរគ្នាអរគុណច្រើនសូហ្វី
ហ្នឹងហើយអូមួយទៀតចង់ប្រាប់អ្នកនរគ្នាបើសិនជាអ្នកនរគ្នាធ្វើការ pre-order ចាប់ពីឥឡូវទៅនឹងមាន special gift បន្ថែមទៀត
ហើយយើងនឹងមានព័ត៌មានជម្រាបជូនបន្ថែមទៀតតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងគម្ពីរ E11 ប៉ុន្តែបើសិនអ្នកនរគ្នានៅតែមានសំណួរច្រើនតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹង E11 តាក់ទងជាមួយនឹង specification ដែលអ្នកនរគ្នាមិននឹងព័ត៌មានផ្សេងទៀតដែលអ្នកនរគ្នាមិនបានរកឃើញនៅលើទំព័ររបស់គម្ពីររបស់យើងអ្នកនរគ្នាអាចចូលទៅកាន់Telegram របស់ពួកយើងនៅក្នុង URL t.me/kompi អញ្ចឹងពួកយើងគឺមានជា community មួយនៅក្នុង Telegram ដែលមានសមាជិកជាង 2000 នាក់នៅចាំឆ្លើយសំណួរអ្នកនរគ្នាសង្ឃឹមថាបើយើងអាចបានជួបគ្នានៅទីនេះយើងនឹងជួបគ្នានៅក្នុង Telegram
ហ្នឹងហើយអូខេអញ្ចឹង
អូខេអរគុណយើងនឹងជួបជាមួយនឹង Regan បន្តទៀតក្នុងវគ្គចុងក្រោយ ហើយសង្ឃឹមថានេះគឺយើងនឹងជួបគ្នានៅសប្តាហ៍ក្រោយៗទៀតហើយបើសិនជាអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាមានsuggestion ទៅលើ topic មួយៗអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាអាចដាក់នៅក្នុង comment below អូខេឥឡូវសូមអញ្ជើញ Regan មកវិញ
នៅពេលរៀមបានឃើញដួងច័ន្ទព្រីរៀមខំសំឡឹងគុណសពអង្គាច័ន្ទព្រាជាត្រួយជីវិតអោសម្រង
Okay, Regan, welcome back to the last section of KOOMPI AMA. I hope you have a good rest a while ago. Did you
Brief.
No, brief.
Yeah, it was a brief rest.
So for almost 1 hour, you didn't breathe.
No, it was a brief rest. It was a quick rest.
Okay, a quick rest.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So there was the question from Pong again. How do you stay motivated when learning code?
Right. So staying motivated is really, it's all about mental. It's a mental game. You really have to, number one, love what you're studying. And I do love what I'm studying. So that is the big thing, is you have to love it. And then you have to really, really take the time, put the time in. If you're not putting the effort in, then no one else is going to put the effort in for you. So you have to put the effort in. And number 3, you have to see the results. Seeing results is the biggest motivation. When you can see what you've been learning come out, it is the biggest motivation. And keeping that motivation, there's a few different things that you can do. But for me, I always like to take a break, go out, think about what I've done, then completely separate from what I've been doing. Then when I come back, I feel fresh and ready to go. That's how I stay motivated.
Okay, wonderful. It's good to have such a conversation with you, to share the show with you today. We are coming to the end of our session today for this week. And so what is last word? Like, no, not last word. Of course. Do you have any final word to our audience, especially for young Cambodian or those people who are interested on whether code, open source or cybersecurity?
What I can say is that for young Cambodians that are looking into cybersecurity and the open source world, don't be afraid by seeing everything that is in English, or don't be afraid to take something that is in English, because once you start, I can guarantee that you will pick it up. Yeah. It's not impossible, and it's completely possible. And also really need to find your motivation, because that is how you're going to be the best that you can be, is find your motivation and start now. Don't put it off, because as soon as you start, that's as soon as you will be able to get your results.
Okay, so thank you for today again, and thank you everyone for watching this show today.
Thank you.
We are at the last minute of our live show today. If you still have any question, don't hesitate to leave your comment below. Or if you want to have a very responsive message, go to our Telegram community by go to t.me/KOOMPI. We are over 2,000 users out there. We'll be like eagerly to answer your question out there. See you next week.
Bye bye.
នៅពេលរៀមបានឃើញដួងច័ន្ទព្រីរៀមខំសំឡឹងគុណសពអង្គាច័ន្ទព្រាជាត្រួយជីវិតអោសម្រងសម្រងជាប់ចិត្តសំដីត្រជាក់ហាក់ទឹកអមរិនជួយប្រោះជីវិតបងជាតិនេះបងមិនដែលឃើញទេណាលួនលងស្នេហ៍បងនេះដល់ហើយស្រឡាញ់តែកលយ៉ាងថ្ងៃណានឹងបានគៀកកាយឲ្យបងបានស្បែកពីក្តីទុកខាថាវរីជាទីស្នេហាគុំដាច់មេត្តាណាអូនអើយ